Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. Michelle Branch performs live at Maryland Hall for the Annapolis Songwriters Festival this Thursday night. She joined me to discuss the craft of songwriting on hits like Everywhere, All You Wanted, and Are You Happy Now, as well as songs like Leave the Pieces by her acclaimed but short-lived country duo, The Wreckers. Hey, Michelle Branch. Hey, thanks so much for joining us on WTOP in DC.
Of course. So stoked to talk to you guys.
We're talking because you are coming to perform at Maryland Hall in Annapolis on September 14th, and it's part of something called the Annapolis Songwriters Festival. I believe I read that it's modeled after the Key West Songwriters Festival, but I'm looking at this lineup, and it's incredible. It's you, it's Blondie, LeAnn Rimes, Patty Griffin, Marty Stewart, Kay Michelle. There's so many, but do you know how it's going to work? Like, are you all playing different spots around town? Are you going to, like, collaborate on stuff, or is it all, like, individual, you just do your own thing at different spots?
Honestly, I have no idea, but if I had my way, I will be fangirling Blondie and Patty Griffin and just, like singing every song from side stage. So yeah, I'm not sure how it'll work out, but when I saw the lineup, I was kind of asked last minute to do it, and I saw the lineup, and I was like, yes, sign me up, 100%. So I'm pumped to be in town and play among such great songwriters.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if you're in the same town as Blondie and Patty Griffin and the rest, you got to make time to somehow find a way to pick their brains. but I guess what audience is, I mean, it is a songwriters festival. So I guess I should ask, like, to you, what is the key to good songwriting? Is it like visual storytelling? Is it writing from a personal place? I don't know. To you, what is the knack?
If you find out the secret of it, will you tell me? Because then it would really make my life easier. I don't know. I mean, for me as a fan, as a music fan, like I always connect with things that have like an emotional pull to it. So that's kind of the space that I always try to write from. But it's songwriting is one of those things like you can spend years doing it, but then out of the blue, an idea will literally fall from the sky, and that becomes the thing that people, gravitate towards. So it's really just kind of magic in that way.
Maybe it's just being open to those ideas when they fall from the sky, being able to, grab them at the right time and put it down on paper or something like that, maybe. Well, I want to know, yes, you're right. It is such an ambiguous thing we're trying to describe, but you've been great at it over the years. So let's remind folks how you got into songwriting to begin with. I know you were born in Sedona, Arizona. What do you have any early early efforts that you laugh and look back at, like, sitting on the side of your bed jotting down lyrics or anything, or just how you got into music in general, really?
Honestly, I remember writing songs as early as like 8 years old. I remember sitting in my backyard on the swing set and just humming melodies and making up words and not realizing that what I was doing was actually writing songs. And my dad, on family road trips with my parents and my siblings, my dad had this game where we would like rewrite funny lyrics to existing songs. So like that was a game we would play often. But ironically, Patty Griffin, who's playing on the same bill, was one of my really, really early inspirations. When I was 15, I was given a mixtape of some of her music, and I just was completely inspired and blown away. And I asked for a guitar for my 15th birthday, and my uncle gave me one to borrow. And I got a chord book and started trying to teach myself, and kind of started writing songs pretty soon after that. So in the timing of everything, it's pretty wild, because by the time I was 16, I had a record deal, and The Spirit Room, my first album, came out when I had just turned 18.
Yeah, I think a lot of people forget how early it was when all that started happening for you. And I definitely want to get to the Spirit Room in 1 second. But real quick, I wanted to ask about something that I read before that. I know you did that little like self-produced kind of a thing, the Broken Bracelet indie thing. And is it true you posted a couple songs on online, like rollingstone.com or something, and that caught the attention of Hanson?
It's a little more complicated than that, but yes, there was Rolling Stone had just started this thing where you could upload music as an independent artist, and so I had put music up on there, but I was living in Sedona, Arizona with my mom and dad because I was a teenager, and my mom's friend worked at this timeshare resort nearby, and she got this guy in to do a timeshare tour, and she asked him what he did for a living, and he said, I'm from Los Angeles, I'm in the music business. And so unbeknownst to him, he went on this timeshare tour, and in the meantime she called me and was like, get down here, there's a guy who works for a record company and he's here. So I was home alone, didn't have my driver's license, my parents were at work, and I went and borrowed my neighbor's golf cart, and I drove down to this resort, and I was waiting there with a tape, and literally cut my photo out of a family photo and stuffed it in the tape, as my like, makeshift 8 by 10. And I was there to give it to him, when he came out of the tour, and he had a relationship with the band Hanson, and when he listened to the tape, he ended up calling me back and had called Hanson's manager saying, there's a girl in Sedona, Arizona who's pretty good. Like, what's your advice? And they were like, oh, does she want to open some shows for us? So the next thing you know, I was in LA opening up for Hanson, and someone from Maverick Records was in the audience and came backstage and offered me a record deal afterwards. It was pretty crazy.
That is a fantastic story. You hopped on a golf cart because your parents weren't home and you cut a family photo out, stuffed it in a demo tape, and drove it down. And that is amazing. Okay, wow, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, that was before MySpace. You had to put it up on RollingStone.com, I guess. But wow,
Yep.
so that's great. So then,
Yep.
as you said, that leads to you getting signed by Maverick, Maverick Records, Madonna's label. And then that brings out that amazing first album, The Spirit Room, in 01. Of course, the first lead, the hit single, the first one was Everywhere, because you're everywhere to me. Talk about right. I mean, this is a songwriters festival, so I want to do deep dives on this. We remember it on TRL MTV, but I want to go into the craft of writing Everywhere. Any good tidbits on how you structured that one?
That song, that's one of those that I touched on earlier, that kind of magic falls from the sky thing. Everywhere was that. I was in the studio with my producer, John Shanks, and we were getting toward the end of the album. And one day I was like, yeah, I kind of have this idea that's been like kicking around. And I played it for him. And my A&R guy who worked at the label had told me when I played it for him, he was like, oh, don't bother with that one. Like, don't, leave it off. And I just couldn't get it out of my head. So I played what I had for John, and he was like, no, I think we should work on this. I was like, really? Like, I was told we shouldn't waste time working on this. And next thing you know, it was, a massive hit. And it's like really, I'm really grateful that John could like hear through my little original idea to let it become what it became.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, that song was everywhere after he came out. And before we move off of that album, one final one, I have to ask about All You Wanted. I mean, if you want to, I will save you. I mean, it looped in the minds of so many folks growing up back then. It was a soundtrack of all our lives. But I think there was even a VH1 pop-up video. I mean, that was just as big as Everywhere as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, similar to how you just shared a great story about Everywhere. Well, what was the inspiration for All You Wanted, or even just the songwriting approach to that one?
Yeah, that one's one of my favorites. I wrote that in my bedroom in Sedona, Arizona, and that was like a fully formed song that I brought in when I went to record. And it was just, I don't know, young teenage love. I mean, a lot of the record was written before I had even really had a real boyfriend. So it was me sitting in my room, like imagining what relationships would be like. And that was probably written about me pining after some, boy in my math class or something.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it was a great one that connected with so many people. All right, and then of course, then you followed it up with that second album, Hotel Paper in '03, had Are You Happy Now, which is a great song. I mean, I guess it was a Grammy
Thank you.
nominated for Best Female Rock Performance. But and you can see why. Like, it really rocks out when you get to that chorus. You know, like, could you look me? And I mean, it's great.
Thank you.
I guess you're up for Best New Artist around that same time too. But yeah, what was sort of the idea of that? What were you intentionally trying to maybe go for a little bit of a harder rock? I mean, Everywhere and All You Wanted were upbeat, but more of a pop song. But were you trying to rock out a little more with that one?
Yeah, I was. And I'm just so sad because the category of best female rock does not exist with the Grammys anymore. And I just wanted it to come back.
Why'd they get rid of
Um,
it?
I, uh, I don't know. I mean, there are so many women who are making rock music. I feel like we should all petition for it to come back. But um, I was very inspired by. Um, there's a Nine Inch Nails song that was out kind of right around then, that had this really amazing uh, synth sound for the main like piano line, and I was really inspired by that. And I think people would be surprised to hear, Michelle Branch based "Are You Happy Now" off of a Nine Inch Nails song. So there you go.
That's great. Yeah, no, Nine Inch Nails is great. And yes, bring the category back. I just pulled it up, and yeah, of course, I guess Pink's Trouble won that final one in
Pink
'04.
one.
Pink, a legend. But Avril
Yeah,
Lavigne,
I
Bonnie
lost
Raitt,
to
Lucinda
Pink.
Williams, and you. I mean, that's a category. Bring it back. Um, that would be great to bring
It's
this
a
back.
sick category, and I think it needs to be back. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, of course, we can't go through don't have time to do all of them because I mean, yes, you did. I think you won a Grammy with, with Santana on The Game of Love, and there's so much stuff. But I have to talk about the Wreckers with Jessica Harp. That was such a cool, transition. And
Yeah.
if Are You Happy Now was your rock side, then you totally switch gears and like I can dominate the country world with the Wreckers. It was a great duo, and of course that Grammy nominated single
Thank you.
Leave the Pieces When You Go. Yeah, just talk about sort of putting the idea to put together that duo, and that song specifically. That song is like it's going to go down as like an all-timer country one, at least for me.
Thank you. That song is one I didn't write actually, and it had been cut a few times by several artists. One of the bands that cut it was Little Big Town,
Oh my god.
and it never made it onto anyone's record. Yeah, it never made it onto anyone's record, and I heard it. We were sitting in a pitch meeting, Jessica and I, just listening to songs, and I knew within 2 seconds of hearing the song that I thought it was a hit song, and it was written by Jennifer Hansen and Billy Austin, and it had been kind of circling around town for a while, and for whatever reason would get cut and not make it on anyone's records or whatever. And I fell in love with the song. It was one of those things that I was like, oh, I wish I'd written this song. So we put it on our album in the 11th hour, and the rest is history. But I was uh, I was out on tour with the Dixie Chicks prior to making the Wreckers project, and was just I'm such a fangirl for the Chicks, and
Oh my god.
was so inspired by them. And Jessica Harp was out with me on the road singing backup, and we were like singing harmony all the time, and just wanting to uh, make music like the Chicks. So that was really what inspired me to kind of take a pause on my solo career and start a band. And it was such an exciting run for us.
Now, my wife opened for the Chicks as a teenager, so I'm sure
No way.
she could relate. I'm sure. Yeah, she didn't drive down on the golf cart,
That's exciting.
but yeah, that's great. That's amazing. Yes, they're amazing, and the records are so awesome. And I think it's one of those things that yeah, My Oh My and The Good Kind and One Tree Hill and all that stuff. But I think it's because you were only together for a couple years, at least my memory serves. I think it was only like 2 or 3 years, right?
Yeah.
I think it like holds
Yeah.
a place in country history where we kind of look back where it's like it left us wanting more, if that makes sense. Is there I don't want to yeah, I mean I have no idea why you all broke up, and if it's bad memories, feel free to punt on this question. But yeah, like is there a reason you all broke up? I mean, I know Harp did Boy Like Me recently, and you've done a ton of other solo stuff since then. Was it just time you guys both wanted to just, go back the solo route? Or yeah, feel free to, I don't want to say overshare, whatever you want to
I
say about it.
No, she really wanted to have a minute to work on her solo music, and so we pushed pause on the records. And it's something that initially, like, we kind of were like, let's just leave it where it is. But now as the years have gone on, we're like, oh, maybe we should work on another record. That was really special. So we sang for a St. Jude charity in the last year, recently, and it's just always, um, when we sing together, it's just like one of those things that, like, your hair on your arm stands up. It just feels really special. So I wouldn't be surprised if we work on more music at some point together. We were going to get together to write, in 2020, and had big plans to put some studio time aside. And then, of course, COVID happened and derailed us. And we both have little kids, and she lives in Kansas City. So I'm sure at some point we'll get in a room together and write again.
Well, put me down on the list of people that are begging for the records to get back together.
Thanks.
Awesome. Well, you've been so generous with your time, and I know there's so much more you've even done, you know, in that. How can maybe I can sum it all up into one final post records question. I know there's, you know, you did a couple EPs. There was that third solo album, Hopeless Romantic. The fourth one, The Trouble with Fever, I guess is the most recent one. How do I?
Yeah.
Let's do it this way. If there are fans that know your early Michelle Branch stuff, if there's fans that know the record stuff, what from the post records period, the Hopeless Romantic, The Trouble with Fever, like, what would you say to those people that are post records fans but maybe haven't been following you as closely? Like, what would be a good entry point, a drop in, you know, song or two from that period that you'd be like, damn, I'm actually pretty damn proud of that one. Go check that out.
You know what? I'm so proud of the record, that I made in 2017, Hopeless Romantic. It's, to me, it's an album that kind of like went under the radar and didn't really get as much attention as I think it deserved. And a fun kind of fact is there's a song on the album called Fault Line, and I wrote it with this guy, Dan Nigro, who went on to be Olivia Rodrigo's main co-writer and partner in making her records, and wrote Driver's License with her and stuff. So I just think he's a fantastic writer, and check out the song Fault Line.
Awesome. Yeah. Final seconds. Do you hope that there may be some other young girls or boys, for that matter, that might hear your stuff sitting on their own swing set, and you hope you inspire them to hop in the golf cart, and, you know, but yeah, like, do you hope that, I'm trying to talk about, like, you know, bringing it full circle and giving back to the next generation. Like, do you hope there are other young Michelle Branches out there that you might inspire on their own swing sets?
I mean, I am such a massive fan of so many different people, and the biggest compliment is when someone says, you know, I picked up the guitar because of you. And to me, that will never ever get old. And you know, I'm 40 years old now, and it's been a while since I've heard that. So hopefully, I hear that. From other artists, like Taylor Swift has told me before, like, I was such a huge fan and you made me want to write songs. So, like, that's how that goes, is like, you know, it trickles down, and it's all just one cool kind of chain, and I'm honored to be part of it.
There you go, folks. You hear that, DC listeners? Michelle Branch created Taylor Swift. Just kidding.
No,
No, it's
not what
true.
I'm saying.
No, yeah, no, that's the headline. No, I'm just kidding. No, yeah, no, it's but it's true. You know, it's artists inspire other artists in ways they don't even know, and then they go off and Taylor becomes Taylor Swift or whatever. But, like, it's all part of a continuum, and it's really cool to watch. Well,
Yeah.
thanks so much. Maybe you'll have some people coming up at the Annapolis Songwriters Festival telling you similar things that you inspired them. Come see Michelle Branch. It's going to be at the Maryland Hall in Annapolis on September 14th, as well as all those other crazy lineup of artists of Blondie and LeAnn Rimes and Patty Griffin and the rest. So, hey, thank you so much for making time for us today.
Of course. So great talking to you.
All right, take it easy. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Our theme music is Scott Buckley's Clarion. Remember to give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time.